Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video, I'm working on this 2007 Kia Sportage. Now you've probably seen this vehicle before. I've done other videos on it where I repaired an oil leak that was in the front of the engine. That was a two-part video, pretty extensive. I also did an AC repair on this vehicle before, and I replaced the left rear wheel hub. That's pretty much all I've done to this vehicle, but recently I had to repair the ABS. Now, if I haven't told you already, this vehicle, my daughter was driving it and the ABS freaked out on her, and the right front and the left rear wheel locked up. And so I ended up towing it back here and did some research, and the module, if you buy a new one from Kia, it's like $1,500 or something to buy that piece. And I bought one from, actually off of eBay. The difficulty is you have to make sure it has the right numbers on it, because there's different modules for different designs, like if it's all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive or whatever options it may have. So in this case, I'll show you the module. In this case, this was the number, M4-30, and I found one on eBay and I bought it and I swapped it out, and now the brakes work. So I didn't make a video on that. Basically, you have to disconnect all these lines, put it back in, reconnect it, bleed the brakes, and that seemed to take care of it. So that is a good thing. This video, I need to replace the radiator. So as I was replacing the ABS pump, I discovered it had a radiator leak. Now, of course, these have an aluminum center section with plastic tanks on the side. For whatever reason, I saw moisture. I did some testing. I actually wiped it away and it came right back. So I know it needs a radiator. I ordered one off of Amazon and I'm gonna try to get it fixed today. So back under the hood. Now, to make this a little bit easier, hopefully, I did put the vehicle up on ramps. It has a plastic panel on the bottom side that covers up from the bumper cover and goes underneath the cradle that supports the engine. So it'll be easier to access the bottom of the radiator and the hoses down there if I take that cover off. Now, this has a couple of push pins, and there are also, I believe, 4 or 5 bolts that are 12 millimeter. So take those loose and that panel will drop out of the way. Little push pin there, pull the center out and it'll relieve it, let it come loose. I'm missing one bolt, by the way. Just a note, this is also what you have to do if you want to change the oil filter. Well, it took a few tries, but I got it loose. There, you can see, is basically, it's a one-sided wing nut. Usually you see two sides. I know it's hard to show that on the video, but the drain comes right out the bottom of the mount point for the radiator. Basically, this is the same location. This has a double wing nut. The one that's in the car only has one, so it's really hard to get a hold of, and this is the actual drain right there. So that's what I'm doing to get the radiator fluid out. So while that's draining, let's go over some things. These are the mount points for the radiator. These are your transmission lines. And you can see if I wiggle this, that line is not tight. So you always want to double check this stuff whenever you get into it. This one's loose as well. And of course it has these covers over the water necks. And there's the upper one. That's your other mount point sticking out right there. And then it has a catch. I believe it's probably for the electric fan. There's like a little hook right there. And there's a bolt. Same thing on this side. There's a little catch. And there's a bolt up here. So to get this out, well, there's some other retainers there, maybe for the AC lines, I don't know yet. But to get this out, let's take a look at that. So what needs to happen, have to take this reservoir tank loose. That's for your coolant. There is a hose right here. That hose comes around. You see me wiggle it right there and connects to the water neck. So that's your overflow tank. There are two 10mm bolts that hold that on. Should be able to take this one out and one on the other side and remove this, and of course separate it from the radiator. I also need to take the air inlet loose. So there's a couple of retainers here. These you just pull the center out and the clips release just like the ones on the bottom. You may be able to separate it here, or you may have to come over to this side and pull it apart. So whatever works for you. I'll see what comes apart as I get to that point. And then, if I can show you. Okay, here we have the upper radiator hose. The clamp is on the bottom side right now. It would be nice if this was up high to where it would be easy to get a hold of, but it's down below. And then here you have the mount point, as I mentioned earlier, on the post on the radiator. So again, there's some retaining bolts here. I don't know if there's two or not, I can't tell from this angle. There's at least one, but that is what holds the post for the radiator. So hose, this, and then of course on the other side, once I get everything else out of the way over here, I'll be able to show you the transmission lines a little better. Comes off at the elbow. Good. So with those two bolts out, you can take the reservoir tank and raise it up a bit, and that will allow the antifreeze to flow back into your water neck over here. There's also a clip down here that you want to take loose. I happen to have what would be like a body tool, so that'll pull that out, and then I can elevate this a little bit more and try to get the rest of the residual fluid to go back into the radiator, which is of course draining. The other option of course is to pull the hose off of the inlet and squeeze it and hold it together and then dump it into your antifreeze container. So there's a little clip here that this hose presses into. Should be able to pull out of that, I would think. Yeah. Just take a little effort. And there you go. Set that aside. So as the radiator continues to drain, I want to take loose this upper hose. Now you have to have something like a big pair of channel locks to squeeze the clamp that's on there. This one is a little bit awkward because whoever worked on it last, I'm not sure if it was me or not, put this clamp on the bottom side of the hose. So I don't know why, but I'm going to have to get that loose. So it might take a little effort to get in there and get that clamp to move. Ideally, if I could squeeze it a little and rotate it up, that would be great. I'm not going to show you my fight with that. But the next thing is this, there's a bracket right here. So you can take that loose. That's a 10 millimeter. That bracket holds the radiator hose onto the fan unit, which is going to have to come out. There is a wire connector on this side that just slides out of this housing. And then there's two bolts. There's one right underneath the water neck that'll hold the driver's side, and then there's one on this side as well, right underneath the water neck. So those are 10 millimeter. You should be able to take those loose and lift the fan unit up out of the way, and that'll help gain access to removal of the radiator. Disconnect those. Now I can easily see the transmission lines. Okay, with the fan out of the way, I can show you these are the clamps that hold the transmission lines on. You should be able to use something like a pair of channel locks. Get a hold of those, squeeze them together. I don't know if I can do this with one hand, but you squeeze that together and slide it off, and then that exposes this first upper line, and then the other one is right below it. Once those are out of the way or disconnected, again, there are these, if I can show them a little better, these bolts right here. Hopefully you can see that. That holds like a clamp, I believe. So you take those loose, that'll release the post on the side of the radiator, and you should be able to lift the whole thing right out. I also have a catch pan down below in case I lose any transmission fluid. So I'm going to get these lines loose. There we go. Got those off. Yep, like I thought. It's like a clamping device, so it has one side that hooks. Aha! Well, that makes it more fun. Didn't realize that till just now. The AC condenser is bolted to the front. I may have to take the bumper cover off. Okay, crisis averted. I took this top panel off. That's going to allow me to pull back the bumper cover just enough to get my arm in there. It turns out there's only 2 bolts. They're on the top, and the bottom 2 are slots where the condenser hooks in. So I can pull this back a little, get my arm in there, and get that bolt loose. Make sure you don't damage your condenser, but just like that, get that bolt out. And I will point out that I also got the lower radiator hose loose already. I went underneath the vehicle and came up through and was able to get to it. So this side's a little more open than that side, just the way the condenser is shaped. Okay. That'll be fun getting those back in, won't it? So I'm going to unhook the condenser from the radiator, so I have to bring it up a little. There we go. And now I can pull the radiator out. Ta-da! The next thing you want to do is transfer anything, like if there's on the bottom of the radiator, there's usually like a rubber bushing. I think I knocked one off. Yeah, there it is. So there'll be things like this, and that mounts onto the post on the bottom of your radiator. So make sure you transfer those, and then you can set the new one back in place and basically reverse the order. Get the condenser hook back on, get the bolts back in, and start connecting your hoses. Okay, so everything's back together. I did top off the radiator with antifreeze. I also added coolant to the reservoir. And what I normally do in situations like this is, because the car is elevated, it creates like the high point. So sometimes you can get air pockets within the hoses or various parts of the engine, but having this up high, it helps eliminate some of that. Now, with it running, I turn on the heat, get the fan blowing, and then I verify that I'm getting heat circulating into the vehicle. And that way I know that the heater hoses are getting fluid as they should be. So right now, this is under pressure. If you squeeze that and you feel pressure, you don't want to open up the cap because it could blow back on you. So I always check the radiator hose, and also I can feel that, and there's a good bit of heat coming through that already. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. At this point, I don't see any leaks. I made sure everything is tight. And I will drive this to try to cycle it and try to get any kind of air moving to the top of the radiator. And that's going to help make sure that everything is good. Once it cools down, I'll have it sitting level. I will check for pressure, open up this cap and see what it looks like, and then also check the reservoir and try to top it according to the instructions. So that's going to be it for this video. I need to go out and take this for a test drive. I hope you found some useful information in here. If nothing else, I hope you were entertained for the period of time it took me to do this. I did struggle a little bit with getting that condenser loose, but once I figured that out, not a big deal. So if you would, leave a thumbs up and a comment on this video. Let me know what you think about it. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.